Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a little bit of information about the project coming up this week. So I know I had a few questions about it. I apologize for not being able to have our session last night. Um, my boss is actually in from out of town at work at my new job, and it just with some issues going on there. We have a new semester start next Monday. There was zero chance I was going to be home in time. It takes me about an hour and 45 minutes to get home because of traffic. So I knew that I was probably going to be there until 5:45, 6 o'clock, maybe. Actually, I don't think I left there until 6:30. Anyway, so it was just wasn't in the cards for last night. But the I did get a couple questions from folks, and I just wanted to go over a little bit of information related to the project, and hopefully it'll be helpful overall. So. Um, the one thing that you'll want to do if you didn't do it last week is make sure that you're reviewing. So Module 6 was our financial planning and budgeting week. In the intro here, and these obviously the screen may look a little different to you. I'm in the instructor view, so it might look a little bit different. But in your intro, there's a lot of information about budgeting, incremental budgeting, activity-based, zero-based budgets, etc. So some good information about budgets overall in this section. And then obviously some sample budgets to take a look at. So that's good information. There's also the PowerPoint that goes along with, let me scroll back down to it. Sorry, it's not pleasant to watch it scroll like that. There's the PowerPoint that goes along with our chapter reading this week. And I do have that here. So this is chapter 8, I believe, was your reading for last week. In the Kopensky Healthcare Finance textbook, the authors are writer and song. Dr. Kopensky, unfortunately, has passed away. So writer and song, I think I may have mentioned that before, but writer and song have taken over the updates of these texts. There's several of them that were written by Louis Kopensky, and now they're taken over by writer and song and a couple other folks that are taking over the construction of these books moving forward. So within, I would suggest taking a look at. There's again tons of information in here about budgeting, the budgeting process, etc. But on page 298 of the textbook page, so if you have a hard copy textbook, it'd be page 298. Is the kind of the process for constructing a simple operating budget, which is what we're looking at doing in this week's project. So take a look through here, and just it'll give you some good ideas about what a budget should look like, etc. Now, the next thing I want to say is about variance analysis. So we see a little bit of that, and I'll go to the spreadsheet in a second. We see a little bit of that already in our spreadsheet. And remember that what we're trying to do is cut 5%. So it doesn't have to be just a slice of 5%. It can be 10% in one area, 2% in another area, etc. But we do need to make that cut in order to meet the requirements moving forward. So one of the questions that was asked was, can we make assumptions of certain things, and if we do, as long as we detail what those assumptions we've made are, yeah, you can do that. There's kind of no right and wrong. There's a right and wrong when it comes to here's what a budget looks like, but as far as the analysis and what you put into it, it's really like a simulation. So there's not really a right and wrong. If you handed budgets to 15 CEOs, they'd probably, have nuances of difference in the way they would analyze that budget and the changes that they would make. So, based on their experience, their knowledge, etc. So, but one of the things that you will want to do for sure is some variance analysis. So you want to look at, and it can be, as you look through here, it'll talk about how to do that whole process. But let's go over to the spreadsheet. So here's our spreadsheet that is attached to the bottom of the assignment in the module, and you see we've already got some variance. Variances are noted overall. Obviously, we're tracking to not have as much revenue as we had hoped. et cetera, et cetera. So you can see where where the variances are. And so by looking at these and seeing how far off from budget we are, it might give us a better idea if we want to just cut 5% across all areas, or if we want to cut in a more directed way. Let's, for example, it looks like purchase services other, we're actually tracking under budget. So, so that's not a bad thing. Now, when you look at inpatient revenue, we're not tracking, we're not tracking under budget, but we will be because of the way July to December tends to be when people, in the winter months and whatnot, when people are more sick, tend to be in the hospital more often. We're tracking under budget, we're tracking below the total budgetary figure right now, and that could get worse. We're below budget, 2 million, but that could even get worse if by June our revenue hasn't picked up at all. So just important to think about and take a look at moving forward as you're creating your new budget for the new fiscal year, which would be the 2021, say starting in July of 2020, July of 2021 would be our new fiscal year. So let's go and look at the assignment quick. Actually, I'm just going to bring it up in the syllabus. Because it's right here as well. It's the same narrative that's in the classroom. So you want to have the budget that's prepared. So that's going to be on a PowerPoint, on an Excel document. But then you also want to have the single page written document, and you can do it on a separate tab in your spreadsheet, and just open up one of the cells so we can actually read it like a narrative, or I can read it like a narrative. But the key is you need to explain why you've done what you've done in the budget. So as they talk about here, working on the budget, I'd like you to come to the budget meeting. Where is it here? So the situation is, we have to cut operating expenses by 5%. So this would be what would be, I guess, the current, actually, no. Yeah, would be the current fiscal year. But so for the July, sorry about that. I have a meeting. It's getting ready to start. They're sending documents over. For the July through June fiscal year is their fiscal year. And it talks about, the assumption was that 1.2 billion would be hit. We've only hit over 607. We should be over 612. Potential a deficit of 5 million over over the entire time frame. So lots of problematic things here, but it looks like that they've taken some efforts in the billing department to try and collect accounts in a more effective way, renegotiating with some commercial payers to hopefully get some additional information. Some additional payment from those commercial payers. If you renegotiate your contract, then you might be able to, take part in receiving more payments from them, a higher payment perhaps. And so it looks like they're hoping for a 5% bump on the revenue side, but the operating expenses are still kind of tenuous. So need to be, to look through the budget and figure out where is the best place to cut overall. Now, maybe your recommendation will be, okay, we just need to cut 5% across the board. And if you do that, then you're going to be cutting 5% of salaries and wages, 5% obviously of benefits that would come from that, 5% of professional fees, et cetera, all the way through. You can, again, this is a simulation. So if there are assumptions that you're making, you can address them here. Like, for example, maybe you have a significant amount of supplies spent in that section of the year because you had to do a major restock of PPE. And now you have stock that is going to be covered, and you're not going to have to repurchase that again between now and the end of the fiscal year. So hopefully you would, maybe you could cut more out of the supply budget, or maybe that you have, in some areas like maybe some overhead departments or areas where you might have a glut of staff. Maybe you need to look at making some staff cuts. You don't necessarily want to make staff cuts in the clinical units. Most of them are running on a bare bones staffing as it is. But maybe in your assumptions that your logic that you've created this budget based on, maybe you're seeing that there is room for some cutting in some of these other areas. Or maybe you just choose to cut 5% across the board. But that being said, I would suggest, at least digging in and saying, well, maybe this will be really difficult in the salary area because we know that we would have to cut nursing staff, or we know that we would have to eliminate a chief officer position of some sort. So, we would have to cut the budget for for whatever, something somewhere else. And I think the other thing that's important, let's hop back to the assignment again. The other thing that's important about this is that, like it says in here, think through the cuts that are being proposed. Do you simply want to take a slice across all areas, or are there areas that make more sense to protect versus more that are more flexible? We don't, like I said, we don't know everything, but the key is this last sentence here. Think through what the second and third order effects are of a budget cut. So if you cut, let's say you close a unit, so you cut all of that staff, but then you've also lost all of that revenue. So make sure that you're thinking of the downstream effects. Maybe maybe one of the assumptions you make is, well, we have a unit that hasn't really had many patients on it. And so we're going to close that unit. We're going to redeploy some staff to other areas, but the remaining staff would be laid off. And we would, not have to pay for the supply cost, for the, linen cost, for all of that for that area. So there's a million different ways you can do this. All I ask is that you remain as close to possible at being realistic, and make sure that there's some realism in what you have. That section in the textbook, I apologize, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit here. The section in the textbook here, again on page 298, talks about how you create a simple operating budget. So like down here, 8.3, this is a simple operating budget right here. And so that's the kind of thing that you're going to want to put together based on what you're seeing in the existing spreadsheet. Push that forward to the next fiscal year. What do you think we're going to need to do, making that 5% cut across the board? So that percentage of dollars, whatever that calculates out to be, but you can cut 10% in one area, 3% in another area, etc. However you want to do it. I think that should cover all of the questions I received. I'm not thinking of anything else off the top of my head. If I did not answer all of the questions, please feel free to reach out, let me know, and I will address questions. If I get questions in that I think multiple people would be interested in, I will just put up an announcement and let everybody know perhaps what the answers to those questions are. But otherwise, that's about it. Pretty straightforward. And remember, it is like a simulation, so you have some flexibility, but you just need to define that, what was your logic? Why did you make the decisions you made? And that's good. That's what we need to see. And we want to see an actual budget, like what a budget should look like. So you want to use your textbook for that, use the model that's in the spreadsheet for that, etc. So I think that's probably about it. If you have any other questions, like I said, reach out. You can text, you can call, you can email you can email me, or you can message me in the classroom. I get both of them pretty quickly. So just let me know, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks.